Well, I think innovation is absolutely key in any successful business. I think there's many, many examples of businesses that have not been able to innovate and not been able to keep up with the marketplace, ranging from Nokia to blockbusters. Innovation and an ability to see forwards is absolutely critical if you're going to be able to lead a successful organization.
So you started the Gradstar Awards, and you're literally the founder and still running it from start to finish. How did it come about? Where did this inspiration come from?
Okay, so the Grad Star Awards are in their ninth year now. And yes, I did create and found them with the help of some friends. Also, it wasn't entirely me. Um, but they came from the concept, a former concept that we launched called Rising Star. So Rising Star was again founded and created by myself and a team um, for 13 years ago. And Rising Star was designed to recognize and promote the most talented young professionals across the whole country. So we look at the ages between 28 and 40, and then we work with HR departments across the economy and ask them to put forward their most talented young professionals. And then we take them through leadership assessments and quite a rigorous judging process involving over 60 judges year on year on year to identify the most promising and most talented young professionals in the country. GradStar, which you specifically asked about, is a sister program and is a further development from Rising Star. So we believe that it would be amazing if we could were in a position to recognize the most employable tertiary students in the country, and then perhaps link them with some of the employers we represent. So we began the program GradStar. We started reaching out to tertiary institutions in South Africa, and we invite all tertiary students to enter the GradStar Awards. And in a similar way to Rising Star, we take them through a process that looks at leadership qualities, that looks at employability qualities, such as grit and resilience, learning agility, curiosity, characteristics that employers really want to look for and really want to employ. And then eventually, I mean, this year we received over 6,000 entries. Eventually, we take that to a top 500 and then a top 100. And the top 100, we fly into Joburg for a 4-day event. It's now a 4-day event. It's developed year on year on year, where we do introduce the top 100 to the top employers, as well as giving them work readiness, employability, all sorts of stuff.
Okay, so for Rising Star, you said you look at the ages 28 to 40. Why that age category specifically?
So we did some research in the area, and there's a lot of recognition, of course, in the C-suite area and CEO of the year. There's a lot of recognition there, and even in slightly lower level. But when we looked in the 28 to 40 age brackets, we realized that it's a very special space. So if you're in your, let's go with just say 30s for ease, if you're in your 30s, if you're good at your job, your employer probably already knows you're good at your job. Maybe they have you on career progression initiatives. They've sort of identified you as somebody who will go far. So they expect a lot of you. I mean, they possibly expect you to be online most of the day, answer questions all day, but also not just in your career are you excelling. You're in a position where you have enough knowledge that you may be mentoring down and giving back and looking for those who follow you. But in your personal life, it's a massively, massively busy space. Maybe you have aging parents who you need to care for. Maybe you have young children. You'd have young children. Maybe you still want to do an MBA and further your own learning. I mean, there's a huge amount of stuff going on in that space when you're in your 30s. And we found there was literally no recognition there, nothing at all. And even if you're in the workplace, if you may not be making the strategic decisions, but you'll certainly be responsible for implementing them, for running a team, for carrying it out and ensuring business success. So we thought it'd be a really, really good and valuable space where we can begin our recognition programs.
There's a book that I'm reading now by Peter Thiel called Zero to One. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
I haven't read that. I haven't read that one.
One of the key concepts in the book is You know, when you're starting a new endeavor, you want to look for secrets. And secrets are things that are out there in the world that nobody has yet to identify. You know, it's like if you think before the idea of gravity was explained by Newton, gravity was there, but everybody else wasn't aware of it. They weren't aware of how to describe it. And it sounds like you had a similar approach with the Rising Star Awards, where you observed all of this, you saw there was a lack of recognition, and you saw that as an opportunity, you know, something that needed to be filled but wasn't being filled yet. How did you become aware of it? You know, were there experiences that helped you see, okay, maybe it would have been better for somebody if this was there in place, or what happened?
I think I possibly identified with that space. I mean, during our first year of business, I was also recently married, starting a family, launching a business. So maybe I identified with that space and realized how crowded it is. Um, but also, I've worked in the industry, whether the UK or South Africa, since I graduated for over 20 years. So I've worked in the recognition space, I've worked in the awards and business to business media space for my whole career.
Okay, so it's been a space that you've seen the different um, facets of it. You've been in the journey from the beginning, seeing how it is for people that start up, and you found yourself in that space where, you know, you're giving recognition to people in that space where you were. Um, so how did the Grey Scar start? I mean, the Rising Star would start out. Like, what was the first Rising Star like versus now? Because I imagine over 13 years it has changed quite a bit.
It has. I was incredibly lucky to have. Hadn't just recently moved to South Africa at that point. I'd been in the country and working in the country for a few years already. And I was incredibly lucky to have some loyal, amazing clients within former clients with my former company in the corporate space. And there was one particular gentleman who worked for, at that time, he worked for Airports Company. And I went to him and I said, this is what I want to do. This is the space. This is how amazing I think it would be in the recognition and how what a boost on their careers this would be for these young people. And he said, that's fine, Laura. Airports Company will sponsor you. And he sponsored me 13 years ago, and they won the program, 75,000 Rand, which gave us enough money to be able to put this together. And then I went to another contact of mine who was at that point working at Standard Bank. And she also said, okay, fine, I will help you too. And Standard Bank will support the initiative. So from there, I had two key sponsors, Airports Company and Standard Bank. And I just got on the phone, and I got on the phone, and the next company that agreed, so it wasn't a contact. This was just a new cold calling contact. The next company that said this is an amazing idea, we need something in this space, was Cecil. Um, and from there, now I've got Standard Bank, Airports Company, and Cecil. So it developed from there. We were very lucky. It was quite hard to break into the market. There was a lot of fear. Um, Firstly, people don't know who Rising Star was. It's a new program, a new initiative, and there was a bit of nervousness in the marketplace about putting their top talent on a pedestal, and somebody might steal them. I feel that that's changed massively within HR departments over the past 13 years, where it's gone from this internal looking, I'm scared to tell people this person's good, to actually realizing that if you treat somebody well and if they're happy in their role and they have career progression, then they're not going to go anywhere anyway. And I often said to clients at that point, so I said, like, if they're going to leave you, it isn't because I put them on a stage. So we had some hurdles, certainly being an unknown and new company to overcome. But we were really lucky to have some good supporters. I mean, Transnet, for example, great company at the moment, but Transnet, for example, have entered people since day one. So have ESCOM. I've had judges that have been with me for that entire period. So we're really, really lucky to have been supported in that way.
Yeah, starting is always the toughest point. You know, it's overcoming the fear within yourself, and then also the fear that others may not jump on board with you as well.
You just have to keep pushing. No one's going to jump on board with you unless you keep knocking on those doors, and it's hard. And even today in year 13, I still knock on all those doors. It's hard and you have to keep selling. It doesn't get easier. Every year we have to keep going, keep selling, keep pushing. But if you're, I think the comment you made earlier about finding that magic space, that magic idea, if you're making a difference, then things will come right. But I also believe in intention. And if your intention is genuine and you're not just creating something just to make money off the back of other people or whatever, but if your intention is genuine and you genuinely want to make a difference and you genuinely put it all together and you've put the back office together in a structured and rigorous manner instead of just doing it on the fly, I do think that then the money will follow.
Okay, I'll keep it in mind with the podcast. um, yeah, so when you started it, it was a lot of convincing people, not just convincing, it's probably not the right word, but changing a mindset that people had, where it's, I've got this talent here and I need to guard it. You know, it's not something that you can easily just convince somebody. How did you go about, you know, opening people to the possibility that it might actually be better for them to have their talent be shown in a good light? Because in my mind, if I look at it, it's on the one hand, you may want to hide your talent so that nobody else poaches it, but you also want your company to look good. You know, it's in your best interest to show we have the best people, and this would be like a space. How did you navigate that conundrum?
I think it's changed naturally over the years. I think there's been a culture change within the corporates to exactly what you're describing, away from this protectionism and into promoting your company. I think people have started seeing talent, well, they always did, but talent is your own USP. So as computer systems align and everybody uses SAP or everyone uses Workday or whatever the computer systems align and business practices and processes align as they automate, often one of your biggest standout features is your talent. So this has now become more of a story to shout about and more as to say that we have these amazing young people. And as you said, make that into almost a recruitment pitch for your own company so you can continue to excel in your space.
Something if I think of when you're comparing talent, there's also the sense of there are people with a certain level of competency now, like they have the skills and everything. But then there's also an element of potential. And, how do you, what do you look for in terms of the awards? Do you look at what somebody is just capable of now, or do you try and look ahead through your assessments, through your various selection processes?
Okay, so we judge on leadership qualities and we judge on personal characteristics. So these are the kind of characteristics that absolutely you can develop as you go through your career, but are really intrinsically there. I mean, you're either a team worker or you're not. You either have a solid and grounded ethical compass and you'll do the right thing even when it's hard, or you're not that person. And I think we're trying to identify those young professionals who have the qualities and who are performing under those, who are demonstrating those qualities in the workplace, but also who could, with a little bit of help and a little bit of grooming, who could really refine them and be the most incredible leaders. I mean, at the moment, we're very fortunate to have a partnership with Duke CE, and all of the winners of the Rising Star Awards will win a 1-year leadership bespoke coaching course with Duke CE, the top learning institution in the country. And they will do a bespoke course for each of the 12 winners to really help them in their leadership career and ideally contribute to the economy as a whole as we groom these future leaders into the very best and ethical leaders they can be.
Okay, so it sounds like it's also not just identifying the best people, but also helping them to actually be better. So, giving resources to further their possibilities as well.
It's a boost, isn't it? It's a boost to their career. Just not just the recognition, but the coaching. Um, and it's the recognition internally as well. I mean, we've had people who've won, we've had winners come to us and say, look, I always knew my company thought I was good. I mean, they put me forward out of 200,000 employees, they put me forward. I always knew they thought I was good. But since I went through the process and since I won the award, They listen to me now, and now they ask my opinion. And now the CEO called me into his office and he asked me something. All of a sudden, I feel more seen now, as opposed to just a talented worker.
Yeah, that also changed the idea because it's also kind of easy to do the work and do everything and kind of feel like you're just fading into the background. I'm doing all of this work, but to what extent?
Exactly.
So I had a look at your website, and there's five like categories that you rank people on.
They're the qualities, yeah, the characteristics.
Yeah, five qualities. So first one is vision and ability to innovate. What can you tell me about that? Why do you look for that specifically?
Well, I think innovation is absolutely key in any successful business. I think there's so many examples of businesses that have not been able to innovate and not been able to keep up with the marketplace, ranging from Nokia to blockbusters. Innovation and an ability to see forwards is absolutely critical if you're going to be able to lead a successful organization.
Yeah, there was actually a quote by David Deutsch that has been playing on my mind, and he makes the case for innovation through history and evolution. So, if you look at evolution, literally the thing that makes species survive is their ability to adapt to different circumstances, to different climates, to whatever nature throws at them. And that's one of the trademark things of humans. Like the reason we survived over all the other humanoid species, like the Neanderthals, for instance, was literally our ability to adapt, where we were forced out of one area, had to adapt and make things work. And the same with business, or if you look at the biggest tech companies, the ones that survived are the ones that changed the world and continue to innovate. A good example is Blockbuster. Like, if you ask anybody, when is the last time they've seen like a rental store? It's probably going to be in the early 2000s. Now everybody's on Netflix, and it's if you don't innovate, somebody else is. There's never going to be a shortage of it. So, what exactly do you evaluate with innovation for, the people that enter the awards? Like, how do you identify that somebody has this capacity?
Well, firstly, I use experts. I don't just do it myself. I use industry experts. I mentioned earlier that we bring together over 60 judges every single year, and different judges and judges who play different roles within business. We work with a lot of HR execs. We also bring to the party in each of the judging panels a former rising star, because they themselves are the future talent and they know what it's like to sit at the other side of the table. We also try to bring a CEO, a current leader, into each of the judging panels, so that they can really work together and use their shared knowledge and experience as experts in this country to be able to identify which of those young people really gives them the X factor.
Okay, so it sounds like diversifying. So it's not just one person making, the call, and then it can kind of be a misidentification, with you have, especially with innovation. Yeah. Oh, especially with innovation, like the biggest innovations tend to go unnoticed. Like if you look at Google, Apple, when they started out, like they were met with a lot of skepticism. So it sounds like you kind of guard against that by having experts in the field and multiple people.
Well, absolutely. I mean, when I say we bring together 60 judges, there's 12 industry categories that people can enter into, and it's based on your company's core industry. So if you work for Standard Bank, you would enter into the banking and financial services category. If you work for DHL, you enter in the logistics category. It's fairly simple. But for each of those categories, I bring together a judging panel of 5 or 6 industry experts, or not just industry experts, talent experts, leadership experts, and interviewing and HR experts, those who are recruitment experts, and they we do give them guidance and explanations, and I do a judge's briefing for them. But really, it's down to their long history of experience.
Okay, on to the second quality that you look for. It's passion and impact.
Yes. Well, you tell me if you can lead a business without passion.
Well, I've seen people try, but it not be successful. Yeah.
Well, there we go. The hours, the sacrifices you have to make. That you have to make sacrifices if you want to, and it's if you want to excel in your career. There's a balance, absolutely, and some people get it more right than others. But you can't. There are sacrifices you have to make if you want to reach a C-level position. And that's passion. And then impact is really about the impact that you have on those around you, on the economy, on your business. It's about being a leader and being someone who has like we said, who has an impact on those around them.
Can you maybe give me an example of like somebody that you think truly embodies, the essence of being passionate about something and truly having an impact on those around them?
Well, it might be a bit cliched, but is there any better example of that than Nelson Mandela?
No, there's not really a better example. Um, yeah, and I think using him as an example as well, it's that your passion alone is not enough. Like, if you are truly passionate, you bring others along the journey with you. Especially like Nelson Mandela, his actions, everything he went through, it spoke to the hearts of people. And I think also having you as the individual be passionate is also very important. You are the most valuable asset you can own. Like, you can have the biggest business, but the biggest thing in the business, in any business, is normally the leader. Apple was the most valuable uh, company at one point, but the greatest asset was either Steve Jobs or now it's Tim Cook. There's no replacement for that. And I think another thing with passion also, it's you see something else that others don't. You not like others. There has to be something different, something uniquely you. And passion shows people a different possibility of what the world can be. And that comes from, belief in yourself as well. If you can't picture the world being different, then, you can't expect others to picture it as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you have to be able to share that passion.
Yeah. And I think it ties in nicely with your next quality, which is responsible engagement. That kind of complements it. What does responsible engagement mean exactly to you?
It means working with your stakeholders, be that your colleagues, your suppliers, your clients, in a responsible and ethical manner, and dealing with yourself in an ethical manner too. Um, I mean, I think as a future leader, you need to be able to admit your own mistakes, refuse to cover up slip ups, um, and in certain instances, people have been, and I've seen this in the applications, have been asked to lie to cover up for an ethical error, and refusing to do this. It may be difficult, and they may suffer for making these choices, but what they do show is a quality of integrity in their character, and these are the people who should be recognized, those who may suffer in their career for choosing to do the right thing. And it doesn't always mean they will suffer in their career. It just means that their trustworthiness and ethical behavior comes first.
Yeah, I think either way you will suffer, because it sounds like a lot of it is speaking to integrity and honesty. If you go against your own integrity, you suffer in silence. The only difference is it's not there for the world to see.
Absolutely. Have an internal battle that you have to deal with, and the workplace stops being a place of joy for you.
Well, in the situation of where, somebody's a whistleblower or they have to do something that goes against what they're being told, what do you think people can do to actually navigate such a challenge successfully? Because one of the challenges is it's not an easy thing to do. You literally place your own career on trial. You know,
But it's for the greater good. It's very, very difficult, but you're making, and that's what responsible engagement is. It's responsible engagement with the world. You're making a decision for the greater good of everybody around you, for your colleagues, for society, potentially for the environment, but also for the future. And it's not everybody's been placed in a position like that, and not everybody will be placed in a position like that, and it's not a requirement of a rising star to be placed in a position like that. But we're trying to identify those that will make the right decisions in difficult situations.
okay, so it is when there is somebody that has been in a situation, giving them the recognition for it, and not making it seem like they were in that place in vain.
Absolutely, we may not publicize it, but it would certainly come up within the judging interviews.
Okay, and on to the fourth quality, agility and uncertainty and encompassing digital engagement.
Change. I think you referred to it earlier, embracing change. Agility and uncertainty means, can you be, and I know agile is the same word, but can you be agile when when the world presents you with a problem in COVID? Were you the kind of leader or future leader that could still find ways to lead your team positively? Can you be the one that moves as that faces challenges as they come along and jumps over those hurdles? And agility and uncertainty is one of the most, or ethics, one of the most important leadership qualities, what you do in an uncertain environment. And it encompasses digital technologies, because everything at the moment is uncertain within the digital world, from people's individual jobs to what kind of recording facility you may be using in 10 years. It probably won't be the same as this one. To what kind of, I mean, we won't be using flash disks, but we barely do now. We won't be using flash disks in a few years, and yet we couldn't do without them a few years ago. This whole world is changing. AI, chat GPT, this whole world is changing quicker than you can believe. So any future leader leading any organization now needs to be able to have an understanding of technological advancement.
Do you have any examples of, where you've seen individuals truly embrace this, um, this adaptability, where you saw them, or, through your judging process, somebody showed you something that you were like, wow, I would have never expected this sort of change is possible.
Well, as rather than specific examples, within the judging process, we also ask the young professionals to complete a case study, and the case study, it often includes, well, actually asks them to create a solution. So whether it's how can we increase entrepreneurship in the communities, whether it's how can we increase technical innovation or technical or how can people have more bank accounts? There's only about 60% in this country. Only about 60% of people have a bank account. So we asked them to come up with solutions, and some of the answers to those solutions are mind blowing. In fact, I do have an example. There was a guy from Coca-Cola who was won 2 or 3 years ago, and the solution, the sustainability solution that he came up with in his um, case study, has now been implemented by Coca-Cola as an organization.
Okay, so there's actually also real world application to your, selection process. If somebody truly solves a problem, it has the potential for also being implemented.
Absolutely, as long as the right people are listening, right? But he took his work back to his own organization and said, "Look at this. This is I didn't know I had this in me, but this is what I came out with under pressure when I was asked to create a solution." He's like, "But look at it." And the Coca-Cola took it and they ran with it. They said, "This is amazing," and we absolutely will. This will be part of our strategy going forwards.
Oh, that's such a sweet story. And onto our last quality, which is systems thinking and sense making.
So, systems thinking and sense making is about viewing different moving parts and how they fit together. like the human body, how the heart works with the lungs and how why the liver is important and why muscles and blood flow and how all these different elements of a system work together to create a greater whole. Now, if you're going to run a business successfully, you have to be able to have this view, and you have to be able to understand all the different elements within your business and how they all fit together to create the perfect solution.
Okay, yeah, it reminds me of a book I read, Skin in the Game by Nassim Nicholas Taleb. So he, he sort of prefaced the idea that a lot of people think, but they don't think holistically. You know, where people will think in statics, where they'll think this is the way things are and this is the way things work now. So it's always going to work this way. Versus dynamic thinking, where you look at how things can change, how things will change, what the impact will be when things change, or when you look at dimensionality and how it affects things. So, you know, if a good example with dimensionality is if you take how people will treat the family versus how they'll treat the neighbor versus how they'll treat somebody they don't know but from the same country versus how you treat somebody from the same country if you meet them somewhere in America, because then suddenly there's more familiarity. And yeah, it sounds like you look at that sort of thinking, you know, ability to think in different levels.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, you've got to view your business as a living organism.
Why do you say living organism? So what you like the imagery you use specifically for thinking, you use it as an animal or you know something that has a life of its own.
Does it not?
So can you give an example of why you think like that? Yeah.
Um, I think that's very culture-based thinking as well. But a leader whose organization embodies his own personal values or her own personal values and can filter that through the organization so that we all work as so that everybody is working to the same goal and the same end and has the same belief system will be a much more successful organization than if you have an animal where the heart's beating the wrong way and the liver's upside down. Like, that's not going to work.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. So it's like every single part has to work um synchronistically to achieve an end result.
Absolutely. Every part fits together and no part can operate without all of the other parts. Operate successfully. It can probably operate, but can it operate to its maximum capacity and its maximum ability without the support of the other parts?
Yeah, it's like if you lose your heart, sure you can walk around for a bit, but eventually your brain's gonna need blood pumping to it and you're gonna just fall flat.
Exactly. We're all part of a greater. We're all part of a greater being.
How do you, what's the judging process like? How do you evaluate all of these? So you did kind of allude to that you have judges, you have some assessments, but what exactly is it? So let's say I'm somebody who's nominated and I enter into consideration for the awards. What did my
Yes.
experience be like?
So, the first thing you have to do is complete a self assessment. The self assessment really, really, in fact, all of the phases focus on those five qualities. We don't veer from that. This is the qualities that we actually have identified with a steering group of leaders. We came together um, and updated them about 2 years ago. There was leaders, HR leaders from African Rainbow Minerals, from Vodacom, from Standard Bank, from AECI, from a number of organizations, Accenture, who all came together to put their input into what makes a future leader. So we don't veer from these qualities. But phase one, you complete a self-assessment, which where really we just ask you to give some examples of where you have demonstrated each of these qualities in the workplace. So we can see your understanding of the quality, but also really if you do enact and embody that quality in the workplace. Those phases are then graded by an external expert, and then that produces the top 10. If you make it to the top 10 in each industry category, you then do a one-way video interview. And the one-way video interview will ask you 5 questions. You download the software, It'll ask you 5 questions, and there's one question on each of the qualities. And we tell you this: prepare, understand the qualities, be prepared. We're not going to try and surprise you here. And so you have 2 minutes to read the question and prepare, and then you have 2 minutes to answer it and live video record it. And all of that gets uploaded to our own portal. And this is where we bring the judges in. So your judging panel will then grade your video submissions, and the answers of that produce the top 5. Once you're in top 5, you then go for the in-person interview with the same panel who marks your interviews. And it's that in-person interview where the single winner for each of the industry categories is chosen.
Okay.
And this year, I believe we haven't announced. Sorry, I was going to say we haven't announced the finalists yet. The finalists were actually announcing on Thursday. But in the semi-finals, we have 4 former grad stars in the Rising Star semi-finals this year, which means you must have done something right in the grad star stages.
Yeah, it's like a little success story for the Gradsstars, and to show that it actually has, some foresight to what is to come.
Yeah, we assessed the grad stars and employability before they were employed. Now they've been employed, they've been in the workplace a few years. Now they're the age range and experience to enter Rising Star. And guess what? They're still excelling because they're still demonstrating those qualities, because that's what we're looking for. Leaders.
Okay, and how long is the process, roughly, like from start to finish?
Well, entries are open from January to April. So you can do
Okay.
your self-assessment anytime between January and April. Then over the next couple of months, we launch the semi-finals and the video interviews.
Yeah.
And the video interviews have been completed and have been graded by the judges now in August. We will announce the finalists, as I mentioned, Thursday, which is the middle of August.
Yeah.
Then, so the finalists in the middle of August, then they will go to interview early September, and then the awards recognition will be in October.
And in terms of the different categories that you have, what are the categories? And do you consider all of the qualities the same for each category, or is there sort of let's say in the finance category, you'd consider maybe one quality over the other, like maybe leadership weighs more there, or what's it like?
No, we're actually looking specifically to identify those young people that you could take out of one industry one day and place them in a completely foreign industry the next day, but they would still be leaders and they would still demonstrate leadership qualities.
Okay, and what are the categories the industries that you look at?
Okay, so we have banking and we try to cover the whole economy. There are gaps and there are dotted lines, but really we're trying to be as inclusive as possible. So we have banking and financial services, we have energy and environment, the entrepreneur category, ICT, industrial manufacturing, and then FMCG manufacturing, because they do require slightly different skills. Media and marketing, media and advertising, mining and minerals, professional services, tourism and retail, service, public and private, um, and transport, logistics, and security. I think that's 12. I may have missed one.
Yeah, I wasn't counting, so I don't know if it was 12.
I think that was sounded like 12. Felt like 12.
How have the considerations changed over the years? Because if I think recently, like you have the whole AI boom, so that would be like a skill that you take into account now that you never took before. What are some skills that, kind of outdated, and skills that are becoming increasingly valuable that people might not realize?
Um, well, that's quite a tough challenge because, of course, digital
Yeah.
AI, all of that sphere of things is a critical skill and scarce skill at the moment for organizations because it's a new skill. But we don't particularly judge on skills. We judge on core qualities, and
Yeah.
the kind of person you are and the way you operate. So we haven't judged as much on skills and skills that are coming through. But really, in my opinion, other than digital, there really is an EQ, a softer side of leadership that is becoming more and
Yes.
more important and more demonstrable in our winners year after year after year. those who can empathize and communicate effectively, as opposed to being more of a dictatorship style of leadership.
Yeah, and it's something you see increasingly in the public space. Like more and more leaders seem to be taking a more person-centered approach to engagement with, the people that they work with. Why do you think there's been this change? So you've seen different leaders over the years. You've seen different winners from the Gradstar Awards. Why do you think there's more of a need for this empathic side and emphasis on it?
I think it goes hand in hand with the enhancing acknowledgement of people being a USP, of people being a reason for business success. So, how to work with people, how to manage people, and how to lead people
Mm.
has had increasingly more emphasis on it as as organizations realize the value of people over and above just I'm selling the best carpet cleaner.
Well, if I look at it also, I think, especially after COVID, it gave people somewhat of a appreciation for the other facets of life. Where it's work isn't everything, it's having a holistic way of living, where it's the stuff that may not appear on the balance sheet start to matter more. And a lot of people didn't realize how important health is to them until they were in that situation where, if you get COVID, you might just pass away. And that realization of things can change so dramatically that you might not even expect it. Or a lot of people thought, oh, I'm introvert, I don't like spending time with people. But the moment you're locked up in a house the whole time, you realize, oh crap, I actually do like seeing my friends. I actually do like seeing people. Maybe not as much as somebody who's very extroverted, but that realization that this is something I need that I wouldn't have thought. Um, and with the Rising Star, it's also like a focus on careers, having success in that field. But there's also the side of you want a person who's well balanced, who has their career, who has their family life, the different aspects of your life in check as well. Um, what advice would you give to people that, you know, find it tough to get this balance, like to still be the best professional you can possibly be, but, not to have all this other stuff fall to the side?
I think the advice I can give is that it is tough and you won't always have it all and you won't always get it right. And there will be times when work takes dominance over your family, and there will be times when your family takes dominance over work. And there will be times when you're not able to do exercise that week because of some other reason. And I think that's hard because life is full and our hours are full and work demands a lot of you, and so does family and so does health. There's so many, and I think the best advice is to say that you have got this. um and yes, your plate is really really full, but and you don't won't get it right all the time, and not every moment will you get it right, but just keep doing what you're doing, and operating in the way that we know you are, as an ethical and fair communicator and listener, and being that genuinely good person. Keep to your moral compass. And some you'll drop some balls. Nobody doesn't drop balls. It happens. And there'll be a day when you can't go to the school play because your CEO needs you. And maybe you can't go to the school play because your CEO needs you. But then maybe there's a way you can make it up to your child later in a different way. Or yeah, there will be a day when you can't go to that play, and we'd all love to say, I would go to the play anyway. But there is a situation sometimes when maybe you can't. And you have to say, it's okay, I've got this. But how do I manage my child in that situation? So maybe you do something special with your child on the weekend and you use communication as well with them and explain. But yet you can't, nobody can do it all. It's not possible. And I think we beat ourselves up far too much. You can be a good parent and a good leader and a good child and healthy and well. You can do it all, but there will be give and take sometimes.
Yeah, it sounds like also realizing that Life is not just going to be a straight line. There's going to be ebbs and flows. It's like a wave going up
Absolutely.
and down. There's going to be moments where you might focus on something more than the other. A good example is when you're sick, you're suddenly not going to be running out in the rain and everything that you might like when you're completely well. There's certain things that you'll only be able to do at certain moments in time, and your priorities will change from time to time.
Absolutely. And that's okay. I think the most important message is that that's okay. We cannot operate on 100% of everything all the time. It's a balance, and it's more of a juggling act than a balance. But if you can balance and a juggling act, then you got it.
Yeah, and it sounds like also making sacrifices. Again, with the juggling act, if you're gonna juggle chainsaws, you can't juggle six chainsaws, you'll juggle maybe three. If you want to juggle more, you'll juggle smaller balls. So it's balancing it, you know, what you are able to do and what you can't.
Absolutely. And I was just going to say, it's finding the things that give you energy as well. So if going to the gym you struggle with and it doesn't give you energy, don't do that. Go and play paddle. But find the things that give you energy and focus on those.
You started off with the Rising Star and then introduced the Great Star. What other changes do you see with your awards happening going forward?
Well, last year we launched School Star, and School Star's real impact. School Star's for me, an amazing program. We are in partnership with the Haiteng Department of Education. So at this stage, we're just working in Haiteng. I'd love to extend it, but I need more
Yeah.
partnerships with provincial departments of education. But the Department of Education is helping us reach into the communities across Haiteng, some of the most marginalized grade 12s. Um, and go out to them and help them. Many of them certainly don't have access to their laptops. We've certainly worked with grade 12, so we've had to help them enter the awards, and we've had to show them where enter is on a laptop. I mean,
Yeah.
the difference in opportunity is insane. But so what we're really trying to do is to go out and to find those talented grade 12s across Gauteng, but who maybe wouldn't otherwise have been recognized because they haven't had the opportunity and they haven't had the social or economic or cultural capital to be able to give them everything, that nurturing to get into a position of recognition. So they
Yeah.
enter a version of, it's called School Star. It's a simplified version of Gradstar. And it follows a similar process so that the grade 12s enter into the awards with a simple online system. Then we identify the top 500 in June, and we identify the top 500 early June on purpose so that we can help them apply for tertiary, and we can give them consultancy, we can make sure they've got their documents together, and we pay their application fees. So they actually can enter tertiary now. At the same time, we give them a second level assessment, and that will produce our top 100. And each of
Yeah.
the top 100 learners that we've recognized are then awarded a full living expense bursary to the institution of their choice. And because
Okay.
we help them apply, they can actually use it and they can actually go.
Okay. And if somebody wants to apply themselves about
At
that.
this stage, it would be next year's grade 12s because it's closed now. Entries are
Yeah.
closed. We're in a judging phase. Um, we so it really works with 400. So the top. So when we were looking, it works on a 400 to 100. So it works on an 80-20 ratio basis. So 80% of our applications, and in the top 500 and in the top 100, 80% of our
Yeah.
applications come from government schools and more marginalized area, but 20% come from independent schools. So we really want School Start to be a
Okay.
recognition of all grade 12s, yet giving those a boost who need it the most. Also, there
Yeah.
is a cutoff for the there is a cutoff for the bursary. So you can still be a top 100, but if your family income is significant, I mean, I know how much it is, it's 800,000
Yeah.
Rand is our particular cutoff. If your family annual income is more than 800K, then you don't qualify for the bursary, and we'd rather give it to someone who actually qualifies for it. But you can still be a top
Yeah.
100 and you can still have that recognition. And do you know what? We feel you've got such a
Okay.
greater part to play because you're in a privileged position where you've got things and skills where you can help those other top 100 alongside you and create a buddy
Yeah.
system with those who are going to the same institution as you, perhaps. And really,
Yeah,
we feel that there's a lot more value, the privilege, and it can work both ways, by the way, because the marginalized kids, you
yeah,
can learn a lot from them from your side as well. So that's why we call it a buddy system and not a mentoring system. But we
yeah.
really do believe there's a massive part to play for those talented young people who are also um, from more privileged homes.
Okay, it sounds like it's also a big element of engagement between peers, not only with the School Star Awards. I would imagine it carries through in the Grad Star Awards and also the Rising Star, where it's, a space where people are able to connect and network with people that are on a similar path or journey to them.
Yes, we try. I mean, we try to encourage that. We keep in touch with as many of our alumni as we can. When these new school stars go into the institutions of their choice, we do try and connect them with the grad star who's already there. Um, and even similar with Rising Star. I mean, I know particularly in Accenture, it's a fabulous example. I've got grad stars probably from all 9 years sitting in different levels in Accenture, and they're all there, and they can all meet each other and they support each other because they are part of their own unique group.
In terms of like between Grad Star and Rising Star, is there also that, interaction between the alumni and the perspectives?
As they get more senior, it gets harder because there is more pulls on their time. As you reach leadership, and you have exactly what I was describing, you have a mentoring element, you're still focused on your career, you might be doing an MBA, you have children, you have aging parents, your pulls get harder as you get more senior and older. They do. Um, but we still have an amazing alumni. I mean, this is why we bring the alumni back every year into our judging panel. And we always have a former Rising Star in the judging panel. They willingly come and give their time back to the next generation, or the next, maybe not quite the generation, but but the next few years of leaders. We also within GradStar run something called the Solution Summit, where former rising stars act as mentors in that process as well. So we really do try and keep those connections up as much as possible. And I think a good example is as well, I mean, two of our current sponsors of Rising Star are actually former Rising Stars themselves. And there's Lee Nike from TransUnion and there's Terence and Corsi from Rand Refinery. We recognized both of them in previous years, Lee in 2015 and Terence right in our very first year in 2012. And as they've progressed and got to senior levels, they want to give back to the program because of what it did for them.
Okay, that is so sweet. And I think it also speaks to they saw value out of it for themselves and they are keen to be part of it as well because they do genuinely believe in it. Um, yeah, I think that's testament to, everything that you do try to do with it.
Thank you. Thank you. What would my ideal thing to be next to do next? Um, I'm really blessed. I actually love what I do. If there was no limitations, I would love to take School Star absolutely with national as opposed to high tech and give more specifically marginalized, but it's not just as I mentioned the 80-20 ratio, but give more to young people the chance to be recognized at an earlier age. Those marginalized ones a chance to win a bursary because that changes lives and has massive impact. And then really enhance that relationship to grad star to rising star all the way through from grade 12 level. But as I mentioned, at the minute, I can only operate it in Gauteng because it's the Gauteng government that sponsor those bursaries for the more marginalized of the recognized.
Yeah, before we end, I just want to ask like if there's one quote or question that you keep on the top of your mind to guide your thinking, what is it?
Um, we can go very simply to treat others as you'd like to be, as you wish to be treated yourself. I think that's very important. I think you must always honor everybody around you,
Yeah, the golden rule.
right?
If people want to follow Grad Star, Rising Star, all of the work that you do, where can they go?
Strongest social media is LinkedIn and Facebook. If you type in, their handles vary from social media site to social media site. But if you type in Rising Star South Africa on LinkedIn, I think it's Gradstar Awards on LinkedIn. There's also Gradstar app on LinkedIn. You'll find it. School Star as well on LinkedIn. And variations of those on Facebook. I think it's Gradstar SA as opposed to Gradstar Awards. But if you type in Rising Star, Gradstar, and School Star, you will find us.
Sweet. Thank you so much again for doing the podcast today. Um, I hope that whoever listens to this will feel inspired and will actually want to enter into the uh, awards themselves as well.
They must just drop us a
Yeah,
note on social media. Keep an eye on the websites, gradstar.coza, risingstar.coza, schoolstar.com. And remember that entries will open every February every year. So keep an eye every February on their sites and be the next one to enter. It could be you.
yeah,
Not you,
sweet.
because it was
Thanks.
you.